Hey guys, tonight we dive into the haunting reality of ancient Egypt's most powerful figures. From crushing ceremonial obligations to the constant fear of assassination, the life of a pharaoh was anything but the glamorous existence we often imagine. This is the story of unimaginable privilege paired with unbearable pressure, a defining moment in our understanding of how power can become the ultimate prison. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what you think about whether you'd ever want to trade places with an ancient pharaoh after hearing what their lives were truly like. Now, let's begin. Imagine, if you will, opening your eyes before the first light of dawn breaks over the eastern horizon. Unlike your usual morning, you don't have the luxury of slowly drifting into consciousness. No, as Pharaoh, your awakening is a precisely orchestrated ritual that has begun exactly the same way for centuries before you. Your eyes flutter open in a bedchamber crafted of polished limestone, the walls adorned with protective spells and images of deities who have supposedly watched over your sacred sleep. You might notice the weight upon your chest, not just the physical weight of gold, amulets you wear even while sleeping, but the crushing awareness that with this new day comes the impossible burden of being not just a ruler, but a living God. As your consciousness fully returns, you become aware of the soft rustling sounds of at least a dozen servants who have been silently watching you sleep, waiting for the precise moment of your awakening. The air around you is heavy with the scent of incense, kaifi, a sacred mixture of frankincense, myrrh, and other precious resins that burns continuously in your presence. It fills your lungs with each breath, the smoke believed to please the gods, but in reality, probably contributing to the respiratory issues that plague so many who wear the double crown. The bitter smell of natron salts mingles with the sweeter scents as servants prepare your purification rituals. You aren't permitted to rise from your bed of your own accord. Instead, you must wait as priests enter your chamber, chanting hymns to Ra, the sun god with whom you are identified. They approach with their eyes downcast, for looking directly at the face of a living God is a privilege afforded to very few. The chief priest begins to recite the morning invocation, words that you have heard every single day since your coronation, words that remind you of your divine responsibilities, of the cosmic order, Ma'at, that you alone must maintain. Great Horus, beloved of Ra, chosen of Amun, Lord of the two lands, you rise as the sun rises, bringing life to the Black Land. And so begins in another day of crushing responsibility. The morning purification is not the quick bath you might imagine. Instead, you are led to a sacred pool within your palace, where you must immerse yourself completely. The water is cold, deliberately so, for this is not about comfort, but ritual purity. 4 priests stand at each cardinal direction, representing the 4 goddesses who protect you. They pour more cold water over your head as you emerge, reciting protective spells with each libation. The water drips down your skin, and perhaps you shiver, a very human reaction that those around you pretend not to notice. For you must never appear weak or vulnerable. Such humanity is not permitted to one who walks as a god on earth. The natron salts in the water sting your eyes and any small cuts on your skin, but you have been trained since childhood never to flinch, never to show discomfort. After your purification, you stand naked and dripping as servants approach with linens to dry your body. Every inch of your skin must be dried in a specific sequence, beginning with your right arm, then left, your torso, back, right leg, left leg, and finally your face. Nothing is left to chance or personal preference. Your body is not your own. It belongs to Egypt, to the gods, to tradition. As the servants dry you, you might catch glimpses of your own body. Perhaps you notice the pallor of your skin, kept deliberately light by avoiding the sun, as befits your divine status. Or maybe you're aware of the softening around your middle from the rich diet you're required to consume during endless ceremonial feasts. Your body, like everything else about you, is a political statement, a religious symbol, a tool of state. The next phase of your mourning brings the application of cosmetics, another hours-long ritual that transforms your human face into the standardized image of pharaonic power. Servants approach with the small pots of ground malachite for the green eye paint that will protect your vision and honor the goddess Hathor. Black coal, made from galena, will line your eyes in the shape of the sacred eye of Horus, extending in lines toward your temples. The application is precise, ritualistic, and unchanging. The cosmetics contain the lead and other heavy metals that slowly poison you over time. Your eyes often burn and water from their application. But again, you must show no discomfort. The servants apply red ochre to your cheeks and lips, giving you the appearance of vital health, regardless of how you actually feel. Your eyebrows are carefully shaped and darkened, your skin rubbed with oils and unguents made from rare ingredients sourced from the far corners of your kingdom and beyond. You might wonder, as the servants work in silence, whether anyone will ever see the true face beneath this ritual mask. The answer, of course, is no. Not your wives, not your children, not even yourself in the polished bronze mirrors that reflect back only the image of the living Horus, never the man behind the crown. The weight of your cosmetic mask is nothing compared to what comes next. Servants approach with your regalia for the day. First, a heavy collar of gold and semi-precious stones is placed around your neck. The usek collar that symbolizes your divine protection. Next comes your formal kilt, the shendat, made of the finest linen, so carefully pleated that it takes several servants' hours to prepare it each day. Over this, depending on the ceremonies scheduled, might come additional robes or ritual garments. Then there are the crowns, perhaps the most physically punishing aspect of your daily attire. The white crown of Upper Egypt, the hedjet, is a tall, bowling pin-shaped headdress that throws your balance off and strains your neck muscles. The red crown of Lower Egypt, the deshret, is equally awkward with its tall back and spiral protrusion. On the most important ceremonial days, you might wear the combined double crown, the pshent, which weighs heavily upon your head and neck, causing headaches that you must endure in stoic silence. Your arms are adorned with gold bands that symbolize eternity, but grip your biceps uncomfortably tight. Gold rings weigh down your fingers, making even the simplest tasks difficult. Ceremonial sandals of gold and leather cause your feet to sweat and blister. By the time the dressing ritual is complete, you're transformed from a human being into a walking icon, a living statue, barely able to move naturally under the weight of your symbolic burden. You might take a moment to reflect on how you came to this position. Perhaps you were born to it, the son of the previous pharaoh, raised from infancy, knowing this would be your fate. Or maybe you came to power through more complicated means: marriage to a royal daughter, a military coup, or as a compromise candidate during a time of succession crisis. However, you came to wear the double crown. You now bear a burden few can truly comprehend. The morning rituals complete, you're ready to begin your first official duty of the day, the offering to the temple. You cannot simply walk to the temple, of course. Every movement you make as pharaoh is choreographed, symbolic, watched. Servants rush ahead to ensure your path is clear of any debris or imperfections. Priests burn incense before you, purifying the very air you will breathe. Guards maintain a precise distance, close enough to protect, far enough to show reverence. As you emerge from your private chambers into the more public areas of the palace, you become aware of the people waiting to catch a glimpse of you. Officials and nobles bow deeply, pressing their foreheads to the cool stone floor as you pass. None may speak to you unless spoken to first. None may turn their back on you. The living God must always be approached with reverence and fear. You progress through columned halls where the morning light creates patterns on the polished floor. The weight of your regalia already causes your muscles to ache, but you've been trained since childhood to maintain perfect posture, to never show strain or fatigue. The day has barely begun, and already you feel the crushing weight of your divine role. At the temple, more rituals await. As pharaoh, you are theoretically the high priest of every cult in Egypt, though in practice, you delegate most of these duties to actual priests. Still, certain rituals must be performed by you alone. The most important is the daily offering to the temple deity. In Thebes, this would be Amun-Ra. In Memphis, Ptah. In Heliopolis, Ra. The ritual is complex and unchanging, following steps established millennia before your birth. You enter the temple sanctuary, a place forbidden to all but you and the highest priests. Here in the dim light, illuminated only by small oil lamps, stands the cult statue of the god. This is not a public ceremony with adoring crowds. This is a private ritual between you, the living God, and the deity you serve. The air is thick with incense, the silence absolute, except for the ritualized words you must speak. The offering ritual requires you to present food, drink, and precious items to the god, then ritually consume some of these offerings yourself, creating a communion between you and the deity. The words you speak are in the ancient language, their meaning sometimes lost even to the priests who taught them to you. You perform each gesture precisely, knowing that a mistake could potentially bring disaster to your kingdom. As you complete the morning temple ritual, you might feel a moment of genuine spiritual connection, or perhaps just relief that the first of many ceremonial obligations is complete. But there is no time to rest or reflect. Your day as Pharaoh has only just begun, and a long list of duties awaits. You return to the palace where your first meal of the day is prepared. But even this cannot be a simple or private affair. Your food must first be presented as an offering to the gods, then carefully inspected by food tasters who risk their lives to ensure no poison has found its way into the royal meal. You watch as servants taste each dish, waiting several minutes to ensure no ill effects appear before you are permitted to eat. The meal itself is consumed under the watchful eyes of priests who record every bite you take. For even this mundane act has religious significance. Certain foods are forbidden on certain days according to the complex religious calendar. Other foods must be consumed in specific amounts or combinations. Your personal preferences matter little. The ritual requirements of your position dictate even what passes your lips. As you eat, court officials begin to approach, keeping a respectful distance, awaiting permission to speak. They carry scrolls containing reports from throughout your kingdom, the level of the Nile at various measuring stations, the progress of building projects, diplomatic messages from foreign lands, accounts of taxes collected and dispersed. The business of running an empire cannot wait, even for the gods. You listen as viziers and high officials report on matters requiring your attention. Some decisions you can delegate, but others require the divine word of Pharaoh. Each judgment you render becomes immediate law. Each word you speak can determine life or death for your subjects. The weight of these decisions presses down upon you like the heavy crown upon your head. Between these audiences, priests approach to remind you of upcoming religious obligations. The calendar of ancient Egypt is filled with festivals and ceremonies, most requiring your presence and participation. You must memorize countless rituals, prayers, and ceremonial movements, for a mistake could anger the gods and threaten the cosmic order that your role exists to maintain. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, the heat of the day intensifies. Despite the efforts of servants waving large fans crafted from ostrich feathers, sweat begins to form beneath your heavy regalia. The cosmetics on your face, mixed with perspiration, sting your eyes. The weight of your crown causes your neck muscles to spasm painfully, yet you must show no discomfort, no human weakness. You might wonder, as you sit upon your throne hearing petitions from officials, whether anyone sees the human being beneath the divine mask. The answer is almost certainly no. Those around you have been trained since birth to see not a person, but a living embodiment of Horus, a crucial link between the mortal world and the divine realms. Your humanity is irrelevant to your function. Even your closest advisors maintain the formal distance required by protocol. Your chief wife, often your sister or half-sister, according to royal tradition, relates to you as much as a political partner as a spouse. Your children are raised separately, taught to approach you with the same reverence as any other subject. Genuine human connection is perhaps the most precious thing denied to one who wears the double crown. As midday approaches, you might find yourself longing for a moment of solitude, a chance to step away from the crushing burden of divinity. But such moments are rare in the life of a pharaoh. Even your most private functions are observed and recorded. Priests interpret the color and consistency of your bodily wastes as omens. Royal physicians examine everything that leaves your body, looking for signs of illness that might threaten the divine incarnation. The afternoon brings more ceremonies, more audiences, more decisions that affect thousands of lives. Perhaps you must preside over a court of law, rendering judgments on difficult cases that lesser officials cannot resolve. Or maybe construction plans for your tomb, a project that began the day of your coronation, require your approval. The tomb, your house of eternity, will consume vast resources throughout your reign, a constant reminder of your strange dual nature as both God and mortal. Religious obligations continue throughout the day. At noon, another set of offerings must be made to Ra at the height of his power. In the afternoon, perhaps ceremonies honoring ancestors or specific deities whose festivals fall on this day. Each requires specific regalia, particular words, precise movements. The physical toll on your body increases with each passing hour, and as the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, you prepare for evening ceremonies that mirror those of the morning. More offerings, more rituals, more responsibilities that cannot be delegated. The day feels endless, a cycle of obligations that will repeat tomorrow, and the next day, and every day until you join your ancestors in the realm of Osiris. As night falls over the palace, you might find a few precious moments of relative quiet, but even your sleep is not your own. Your dreams will be recorded by priests who keep vigil beside your bed, for the dreams of Pharaoh are considered divine messages. Any words you speak in your sleep will be written down and interpreted. Even in unconsciousness, you cannot escape the burden of your divine office. And so, as you drift toward sleep, the weight of the day's ceremonies still aching in your muscles, you might wonder about the nature of power and divinity. Is the adoration of millions worth the sacrifice of your humanity? Is the unimaginable wealth and authority worth the prison of ritual that confines your every moment? These are questions no pharaoh can answer aloud. Thoughts that must remain locked within the human heart that beats beneath the divine exterior. As you listen to the soft sounds of the palace at night, the distant call of night birds along the Nile, the whispered prayers of priests maintaining vigil, the subtle movements of guards ensuring your safety, you might feel the crushing loneliness that comes with absolute power. For who can truly know the person behind the crown? Who can offer comfort or simple friendship to one who walks as a god among mortals? And so ends another day in the life of Pharaoh, a day of privilege and burden, of power and constraint, of divinity and all too human suffering. Tomorrow will bring the same rituals, the same obligations, the same isolation, for such is the price of godhood in the ancient land of Egypt. As we transition to the next part of our journey through the burdensome life of Egypt's divine rulers, you might begin to understand why the golden mask of pharaonic power concealed a reality far more complex and often more painful than the gleaming monuments would suggest. The royal palace, with all its splendor and beauty, was in many ways the most elegant prison ever constructed. The palace, a golden prison, As the first light of another Egyptian day filters through the alabaster window screens of the royal palace, you might begin to take notice of your surroundings in a way that few outside observers ever could. The royal residence, your home, your sanctuary, your prison, reveals itself in the gentle morning light. What outsiders see as the pinnacle of luxury and power, you experience as something far more complex and often suffocating. The palace walls, rising impressively around you, serve dual purposes that become clearer with each day of your reign. They keep the dangers of the outside world at bay. Yes, but they also keep you firmly contained within. These walls, painted in vibrant colors depicting your victories and divine favor, tell stories of your power to those permitted to see them, but to you, they increasingly mark the boundaries of your confined existence. You might notice how the morning sunlight creates dappled patterns across the polished limestone floors that few feet besides your own and those of your carefully selected servants are permitted to touch. The cool stone beneath your feet is swept and polished multiple times daily, for not even a speck of dust is allowed to accumulate in the presence of divinity. The sensation of cool, smooth stone against your skin might be one of the few genuine physical pleasures your position permits you to acknowledge. The ceilings soar high above, painted deep blue with golden stars to represent the night sky, creating the impression that even indoors you exist in a cosmic space between earth and heaven. Gold leaf catches the light, sending shimmering reflections across the walls. Columns carved to resemble bundled papyrus stalks support these ceilings, their capitals spreading out like the plants that grow along the life-giving Nile. Everything around you is symbolic. Everything has meaning beyond its function. Everything reinforces your divine role. The air within the palace carries a complex mixture of scents. The ever-present Kiphai incense, burning in golden censers, the subtle perfumes of the imported cedar wood used in furniture, the aroma of oils used to polish stone and metal surfaces, the distant smell of food being prepared for the day's many ceremonial meals. Unlike the streets of the city beyond the palace walls, here there are no unpleasant odors, no reminders of the messier aspects of mortal existence. The environment is controlled, purified, artificial, as you move through the columned halls, accompanied always by your entourage of priests, servants, and guards. You might become aware of the sounds of the palace, or rather, the careful management of sound within these sacred spaces. Voices are hushed in your presence. Sandaled feet make minimal noise on the stone floors. Musicians play soft, pleasing melodies in distant chambers, the sound floating through the corridors. But the natural sounds of life, children's laughter, arguments, the honest noise of humanity, these are filtered away from your divine ears. The layout of the palace itself reflects your isolated position. Your private chambers lie at the heart of the complex, surrounded by successive layers of other rooms and courtyards, each with increasingly restricted access. To reach you, a visitor would need to pass through numerous checkpoints, each guarded by officials and soldiers whose sole purpose is to control access to your divine person. Like the chambers of a heart, the palace pulses with activity around its central core. You, protected and isolated, The outermost courtyards might host diplomatic receptions or public ceremonies where carefully selected representatives of your subjects can glimpse their living God from a respectful distance. Moving inward, administrative areas house the vast bureaucracy that manages your kingdom, where scribes record on papyrus the decisions that flow from your divine authority. Closer still are the areas reserved for high officials, priests, and members of the royal family. And at the center, your own quarters, the most private, yet paradoxically, the least private spaces in the kingdom, for even here, you are never truly alone. Your personal chambers include sleeping quarters where priests monitor your divinely significant dreams, bathing areas where your body is cleansed according to strict ritual requirements, dressing rooms where the elaborate process of transforming your human form into its divine presentation takes place daily. Even spaces that would be intensely private for ordinary humans, those for bodily functions, are locations of ceremonial significance for you, with special attendants to monitor and interpret what your body produces. The windows of the palace, narrow and set high in the walls, allow light to enter while making it difficult for anyone outside to see in or for you to see out, except in carefully controlled circumstances. These apertures are often filled with thin pieces of alabaster that soften the harsh Egyptian sun into a diffuse, flattering glow. The effect is beautiful, but contributes to your separation from the world beyond. You see not the kingdom as it truly is, but a filtered, softened version of reality. When you do venture near these windows, perhaps during a rare moment between ceremonial obligations, you might catch glimpses of the world outside, the city stretching toward the horizon, the life-giving Nile flowing eternally, fields green with crops, or workers constructing monuments to your divine glory. But these are distant visions, removed from your direct experience. The sounds, smells, and textures of ordinary life remain largely theoretical concepts for one who walks as a god. Gardens within the palace walls provide carefully cultivated nature, pools stocked with colorful fish, beds of lotus flowers, exotic trees, and plants brought from distant lands as tribute or through trade. These create the illusion of connection to the natural world, while actually offering another controlled environment. Even nature itself is made to bow to the order of Mayat, the cosmic harmony that you, as Pharaoh, are charged with maintaining. The furnishings that surround you represent the height of craftsmanship and luxury. Your throne, inlaid with gold and semi-precious stones, is designed not primarily for comfort, but as a symbol of your authority. Your bed, while draped in the finest linens, is constructed with ritual significance in mind, often incorporating protective symbols and divine imagery into its frame. Chairs, tables, storage chests, all are masterpieces of artisanry, many decorated with scenes of you triumphing over enemies or receiving the blessing of the gods. Yet for all their beauty, these furnishings serve to reinforce your symbolic role rather than provide the simple comforts that even a peasant might find in a crude wooden stool perfectly shaped to their form through years of use. The physical comfort of the pharaoh is secondary to the proper presentation of pharaonic power. Food within the palace is abundant and varied, representing the finest offerings from throughout your kingdom and beyond. But your meals are never simple affairs of hunger and satisfaction. Before you can taste anything, offerings must be made to the gods. Food tasters must sample each dish to ensure against the ever-present threat of poison. Priests must approve the menu according to religious calendars and restrictions. The act of eating, that most basic of human functions, becomes yet another performance of your divine role. The people who surround you within this golden cage are as carefully selected as every other aspect of your environment. Servants are chosen for their beauty, skill, and absolute loyalty. Many have been in palace service since childhood, raised to view their proximity to your divine person as the highest possible honor. They move through the palace with practiced efficiency, often anticipating your needs before you express them, maintaining the illusion that your environment responds to your divine will rather than through human effort. Your guards, drawn from the elite military units and noble families, maintain a careful perimeter around you at all times. Their presence is both protective and restrictive, a constant reminder that your divine person is both supremely valuable and potentially vulnerable. Their weapons, ceremonial when in your immediate presence, but deadly functional beyond that inner circle, represent the violence that underpins even the most divinely sanctioned authority. Priests move through the palace like living embodiments of tradition, their shaved heads and white linen robes marking them as set apart from ordinary humanity. They regulate your days according to religious calendars. Ensure that every action you take conforms to ritual requirements and serve as the intermediaries between you and the gods you represent on earth. Their power is subtle but pervasive, for even Pharaoh must bow to the weight of religious tradition. Court officials and nobles occupy a complex hierarchy within the palace, each jealously guarding their degree of access to your divine presence. The closer to you they can position themselves, physically and metaphorically, the greater their status and influence. This creates a perpetual current of intrigue and competition that flows through the palace, with alliances forming and dissolving around you while you remain the fixed center of this human constellation. Members of your own family occupy an especially complicated position in this ecosystem. Your great royal wife, often your sister or half-sister, following the divine precedent set by Isis and Osiris, serves as your female counterpart, necessary for the symbolic balance of your rule. Your children, particularly your sons, represent both the future security of your dynasty and potential threats to your authority. Even these closest human connections are shaped and constrained by the requirements of your divine office. As Pharaoh, your day is structured around movements between different areas of the palace, each transition accompanied by changes of regalia and shifts in the composition of your entourage, from private chambers to audience halls, from temple spaces to administrative offices, from dining areas to gardens. Each location within the palace complex has its specific purpose and protocol. Your physical presence transforms these spaces, activating their ceremonial significance. The rhythm of palace life follows both the natural cycles of day and night and the artificial cycles of religious observance. Certain chambers are used only at specific times of day or during particular festivals. Entire sections of the palace may be closed and reopened according to astronomical or calendrical events. The physical space around you shifts and transforms in response to these cycles. Another layer of complexity in your gilded cage. Security within the palace reflects the constant tension between your divine invulnerability and your all too human fragility. Food and drink pass through multiple layers of inspection before reaching your lips. Visitors are thoroughly searched and purified before entering your presence. Magical protections, amulets, spells, ritual objects supplement the physical protections of walls and guards. Every aspect of palace security acknowledges the terrible possibility that divine flesh might prove as vulnerable to violence as ordinary human flesh. The threat of assassination looms particularly large in the consciousness of those charged with your protection. History provides ample examples of pharaohs who met violent ends despite their divine status. Amenemhat I, murdered in his sleep. Rameses III, victim of a harem conspiracy. These cautionary tales inform the paranoia that characterizes palace security, further isolating you within layers of protection. Beyond physical threats, the palace must also guard against magical attacks. Enemies might employ curses, malevolent figurines, or hostile rituals against you. Protective magic therefore permeates the palace environment. Symbols carved into door frames, amulets buried in foundation deposits, spells recited daily by priests. The boundary between physical and supernatural security blurs in this world where divine and human realms intersect. The palace serves not only as your residence, but as the administrative center of your kingdom. In chambers designated for government, business, you receive reports from officials responsible for various aspects of Egypt's complex bureaucracy: tax collection, agricultural production, military readiness, construction projects, diplomatic relations, all require your divine approval, channeled through the hierarchical structures that extend from the palace throughout the kingdom. Information flows into the palace through multiple channels: official reports carried by messengers, diplomatic communications from foreign powers, intelligence gathered by spies and informants. But this information is filtered through successive layers of officials before reaching you, each layer potentially distorting the reality beyond the palace walls. The pharaoh, theoretically omniscient as a living god, paradoxically may be the person in the kingdom with the least accurate understanding of conditions among ordinary subjects. The economic activity that sustains the palace's opulence remains largely invisible to you, taking place beyond the walls that define your world. Vast agricultural estates dedicated to supporting the royal residence, workshops producing luxury goods for your use, taxes flowing in from the length and breadth of Egypt. These create the material abundance that surrounds you without requiring you to understand or acknowledge the human labor that makes it possible. As days pass into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years of your reign, the palace increasingly becomes the totality of your reality, memories of experiences outside its walls, especially if you were born to the royal family and raised within the palace complex, fade and lose their immediacy. The artificial environment, with its controlled conditions and ritualized interactions, becomes normalized, the baseline against which all other experiences are measured. This normalization of your extraordinary circumstances perhaps represents the most insidious aspect of your golden prison: the isolation, the constant scrutiny, the subjugation of your human needs and desires to symbolic requirements. These abnormal conditions become your normal, making it increasingly difficult for you to conceptualize alternative ways of being. The prison becomes invisible precisely because you can no longer imagine life outside its walls. In rare moments of clarity, perhaps during the liminal time between wakefulness and sleep, when the demands of your divine role temporarily loosen their grip, you might recognize the nature of your confinement. You might acknowledge the paradox that you, theoretically the most powerful person in the kingdom, are in many ways the least free. Your will, supposedly absolute, is in practice constrained by tradition, religion, politics, and the weight of divine expectations that precede your individual identity. The physical luxury that surrounds you, gold, jewels, fine linens, exotic foods, provides no escape from this fundamental contradiction. Indeed, the opulence serves primarily to distract from the reality of your confinement, both from outside observers and, perhaps more importantly, from yourself. The golden cage remains a cage, regardless of the value of its materials. Visitors to the palace, foreign diplomats, provincial officials, bearers of tribute, experience only its most public and ceremonial aspects. They see the gleaming surfaces, the impressive scale, the careful choreography of power. They glimpse you, the divine center of this universe, in your full regalia, performing the role of Pharaoh with practiced precision. They depart, convinced they have witnessed the height of human achievement, the perfect union of earthly power and divine authority. What they cannot see, what perhaps even you struggle to articulate, is the cost of this perfection. The human being beneath the double crown, behind the ritual makeup, inside the symbolic regalia, this person remains hidden, suppressed, secondary to the divine office they embody. The palace, with all its splendor, facilitates this suppression, creating an environment where the pharaoh as symbol can flourish while the pharaoh as human withers. Night falls over the palace, and with it comes a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Torches and oil lamps illuminate the corridors with a warm, flickering light different from the harsh clarity of the Egyptian sun. Shadows grow longer, softer, blurring the precise edges of architectural details. The sounds change too, the administrative bustle of daytime giving way to the quieter rhythms of evening rituals and preparations for the royal night. As you prepare for sleep after another day of divine performance, attendants remove your ceremonial regalia, piece by piece, the physical burden lifting incrementally with each item: the heavy crown, the restrictive collar, the symbolic staff and flail. As these are taken away, stored with reverent care for tomorrow's use, you might feel a gradual return to your physical body, a temporary reprieve from the weight of divine embodiment. The evening purification rituals mirror those of the morning, but with subtle differences, reflecting the symbolic journey of the sun god Ra into the nighttime underworld. As your body is cleansed of the day's accumulation of cosmetics, sweat, and dust, you might experience a parallel psychological unburdening, a brief window when the person behind the divine mask can breathe more freely. Yet even in these most private moments, you are not truly alone. Attendants perform the necessary services with downcast eyes. Priests stand ready to record any words you might speak in your sleep, believed to be divine communications. Guards maintain their vigilant presence, for the vulnerability of sleep represents a dangerous necessity for one who embodies divine power. Your sleeping chamber, though designed for comfort with its elevated bed platform and fine linens, remains a space of ritual significance rather than personal refuge. Protective amulets surround you. Magical texts are recited to ensure your safe passage through the dangers of the night. Your dreams themselves are not your own, but belong to the divine office you hold, to be interpreted and recorded as omens and prophecies. As consciousness fades and sleep approaches, perhaps you experience a moment of honest assessment. The palace, that appears to outsiders as the ultimate expression of power and privilege, reveals itself to you as something far more ambiguous, a space of extraordinary beauty and refinement, yes, but also a system of control and isolation that shapes your existence more fundamentally than any decree you could issue as Pharaoh. The golden prison that is the royal palace will continue its cycles with or without your individual awareness. Its routines and rituals, established over centuries and sanctified by divine association, possess an inertia that transcends any single occupant. Pharaohs come and go, living their divine lives within these walls before joining their ancestors in the field of reeds. But the institution of pharaonic power, embodied in the palace itself, endures, and as sleep finally claims you, your last conscious thought might be the recognition that tomorrow will bring another day of the same, another cycle of rituals and obligations, another performance of divine kingship, another day of existence within your beautiful, opulent, suffocating cage. The palace will awaken around you, resuming its complex dance of power and service, and you will once again take your place at its center, both its master and its prisoner. This duality, the Pharaoh as both the most exalted and most constrained person in the kingdom, forms the essential paradox of your existence. And nowhere is this paradox more perfectly expressed than in the royal palace itself, with its spectacular beauty and its invisible but unbreakable bars. As we continue our exploration of your daily life as Pharaoh, we will turn next to perhaps the most visible aspect of your divine role, the elaborate and physically punishing requirements of royal appearance. Part 3. The crushing weight of appearance. As the new day begins in your life as Pharaoh, you once again prepare to transform from a mere mortal into the living embodiment of divine power. This transformation is not merely symbolic or spiritual. It is intensely physical, involving a daily regimen that places extraordinary demands on your body and health. The appearance of the Pharaoh is not a matter of personal choice or even royal preference. It is a sacred obligation, a visual theology, a burden carried in every fiber of your being. The process begins, as it does each day, in your private dressing chamber. This room, accessible only to your most trusted attendants, contains the tools and materials necessary for your transformation. The walls are adorned with images of gods and goddesses in their perfect forms. Horus, with his falcon head, Hathor, with her cow horns and sun disk, Osiris in his mummified perfection. These divine images serve both as inspiration and reminder of the superhuman ideal you must embody. As you enter, servants have already prepared basins of water infused with natron, the same salt compound used in mummification. The symbolism is not coincidental. Each day, you undergo a kind of temporary death and rebirth, shedding your human imperfections to emerge as a divine being. The natron water stings your skin slightly, a subtle reminder of the price of divinity. Your body must first be purified before it can be adorned. Attendants approach with fine linen cloths and begin to scrub your skin, removing any natural oils, perspiration, or impurities. The scrubbing is thorough and sometimes harsh, leaving your skin raw and sensitive. Unlike ordinary Egyptians, who might anoint themselves with protective oils against the harsh desert climate, your skin must be completely clean before the application of the sacred cosmetics. You might notice the slight trembling of the servants' hands as they work. The consequence of touching the divine body is potentially dangerous, and mistakes in the ritual could have severe repercussions. Their faces remain carefully neutral, eyes downcast, as they perform their duties with practiced precision. The human connection that might exist between people engaged in such intimate activities is suppressed by the weight of your divine status. After the cleansing comes the depilation, another daily ritual that sets you apart from ordinary mortals. While common Egyptians might shave their bodies periodically for cleanliness and to combat parasites in the hot climate, your body must be completely hairless at all times, with the exception of carefully shaped eyebrows and, depending on the current fashion of divine presentation, perhaps a false beard that will be attached later. Servants approach with bronze razors and tweezers. The removal of body hair is painstaking and often painful. The razors, while the finest available in the ancient world, are still primitive by any modern standard. Thin pieces of metal with edges that dull quickly. Even in the hands of the most skilled attendants, nicks and cuts are inevitable. Small drops of divine blood are quickly blotted away. The cloths used to absorb them later burned in a ritual fire, for nothing of the divine body can be casually discarded. The most sensitive areas require the most careful attention, yet no part of your body is exempt from this requirement of divine presentation. From your scalp to your toes, every natural hair is removed, a process that can take more than an hour. The resulting discomfort, the itching of regrowth, the small cuts and irritations, must be endured without complaint or even acknowledgement, for divine flesh is supposedly above such mortal discomforts. With your body now purified and prepared, the application of cosmetics begins. This is not the simple enhancement of natural features that even common Egyptians might enjoy, but a complete transformation, the creation of a standardized, idealized appearance that has remained largely unchanged for centuries. First comes the foundation, a paste made from chalk or gypsum mixed with animal fat. This is applied to your entire face, creating a mask-like white base that eliminates any individual variations in your skin tone. The paste feels heavy and slightly greasy against your skin. It restricts your facial movements and cracks if you express too much emotion. A physical enforcement of the divine impassivity expected of Pharaoh. Next, attendants apply red ochre to your cheeks and lips. The pigment, ground from iron-rich clay, is mixed with more animal fat to create a paste that adheres to the white foundation. The red symbolizes life and vitality, creating the appearance of robust health regardless of your actual physical condition. The contrast between the white foundation and red accents creates a striking, otherworldly appearance, precisely the intended effect. The most important and time-consuming aspect of your cosmetic transformation involves your eyes. Attendants approach with small pots containing kohl, a black pigment made from galena, a lead sulfide mineral. Using delicate application tools of wood or ivory, they begin to create the distinctive eye outline that has become synonymous with ancient Egyptian royalty. The kohl is applied in a thick line along your upper and lower lids, then extended outward past the outer corners of your eyes in the characteristic wings that mimic the markings of the sacred falcon. The symbolism is deliberate. Your eyes become the eyes of Horus, all-seeing and divine. But the practical consequences are less sublime. The lead-based kohl slowly poisons you over time, potentially causing neurological damage, kidney problems, and reproductive issues. The immediate sensation is one of irritation, the heavy mineral mixture causing your eyes to water and burn. Green malachite paste is then applied to your upper lids, adding another layer of color symbolism and increasing the dramatic appearance of your gaze. The copper-based pigment creates a striking visual effect, but contributes further to the toxic burden your body must process. Your eyes, transformed into divine symbols, now feel heavy and uncomfortable. The cosmetics restricting your natural, blinking, and causing constant mild irritation. With your face transformed, attention turns to your hands and feet. Your nails are carefully shaped and then painted with henna or other natural dyes, creating another visual marker of your separation from ordinary humans who would use their hands for labor. The dyes can weaken your nails over time, making them brittle and prone to breaking. But such practical concerns are secondary to the requirements of divine presentation. Now comes the application of scent, another layer of your transformation. Unlike the simple perfumed oils that ordinary Egyptians might use, your divine body requires specific sacred fragrances, often made from rare ingredients imported at great expense from distant lands. Frankincense, myrrh, cinnamon, cassia, these and other precious aromatics are combined according to secret formulas known only to the royal perfumers. The resulting fragrance is applied to specific points on your body, behind your ears, at your wrists, behind your knees, and at the base of your throat. The scent is powerful and distinctive, marking your presence even before you are seen. It creates an olfactory aura around you, another boundary separating you from ordinary humans. Some of these aromatics can cause skin irritation or allergic reactions over time, but again, such mortal concerns are beneath the dignity of your divine office. With your body now purified, depilated, painted, and perfumed, the process of adorning you with the physical symbols of your power begins. First comes the jewelry, not mere decorations, but sacred objects imbued with protective and symbolic power. Attendants approach with the broad collar necklace, the usek, made of gold, semi-precious stones, and faience beads arranged in multiple rows. The collar is heavy, resting on your shoulders and covering much of your upper chest. Its weight is significant, creating pressure on your cervical spine and contributing to the neck and shoulder pain that is a constant companion to those who wear the double crown. Next come the bracelets and armlets, bands of gold, sometimes inlaid with lapis lazuli, turquoise, and carnelian. These are not sized for comfort, but for appearance, often fitting tightly around your wrists and biceps. The metal can chafe your skin, especially in the heat of the day when perspiration creates friction between the gold and your flesh. But the discomfort is irrelevant. These are not mere adornments, but symbols of your eternal power, the unbroken circles representing your everlasting rule. Rings are placed on your fingers, multiple heavy bands of gold and silver, some set with precious stones, others carved with hieroglyphic symbols of protection and power. The weight of these rings restricts your dexterity, making even simple manual tasks difficult. But this too is part of the symbolism. The pharaoh's hands are not for mundane work, but for holding the crook and flail, the symbols of divine authority. As the jewelry is placed on your body, priests recite the appropriate prayers and incantations, transforming these metal objects into magical protections. Each piece of jewelry serves not just as decoration or status symbol, but as a protective amulet guarding specific parts of your body against harmful forces, both physical and supernatural. The cumulative weight of these protections becomes yet another burden for your all too human frame to bear. With your body now adorned with jewelry, attention turns to your clothing. Unlike ordinary Egyptians who might wear simple kilts or dresses of plain linen, your garments are complex, symbolic constructions made from the finest linen with thread, counts that represent the height of ancient textile technology. The basic garment is the shendit kilt, a rectangle of linen wrapped around your lower body and secured with a belt. But the royal shendit is no simple garment. The linen must be pleated in precise folds, creating a structured appearance that maintains its shape throughout the day. The pleating process takes hours of specialized labor, with the cloth first dampened, then folded, and finally pressed between boards to create permanent creases. The resulting garment is beautiful, but restrictive. The stiff pleats limiting your natural movement. The belt that secures it is often made of gold or gilded leather, decorated with symbolic designs and sometimes inset with precious stones. It presses into your waist, another small discomfort added to the growing collection of sensations that remind you of your divine burden. Over the basic kilt, depending on the ceremony or occasion, you might wear additional garments, cloaks, ceremonial aprons, or elaborate overrobes. Each adds another layer of weight and restriction, particularly challenging in the intense heat of the Egyptian climate. Even in your palace, designed to maximize air circulation and minimize heat, the multiple layers of ceremonial clothing can quickly become stifling. Now comes perhaps the most physically challenging aspect of your divine appearance, the headdress and crown. The process begins with the preparation of your head. If you have any natural hair remaining, some pharaohs kept their heads shaved entirely. It is now covered with a close-fitting cap of fine linen. This creates the smooth base needed for what comes next. Attendants approach with the nemes headdress, the striped cloth head covering depicted on so many royal statues and images. The cloth is carefully wrapped around your head and secured at the back, with two flaps hanging down over your shoulders. The nemes is pulled tight to create the distinctive shape. The pressure on your scalp and temples, creating a constant, dull headache that will accompany you throughout the day. Over the nemes, depending on the ceremonial requirements of the day, you might wear one of several crowns. The white crown of Upper Egypt, Hedjet, is a tall, bowling pin-shaped headdress that adds height but also creates significant strain on your neck muscles. The red crown of Lower Egypt, Deshret, has a tall back and distinctive coiled projection at the front, creating an awkward weight distribution that requires constant conscious effort to maintain proper head position. On the most important ceremonial occasions, you might wear the shent, the double crown combining both the white and red crowns into a single, overwhelming headdress. The weight and awkward balance of this combined crown make it perhaps the most physically challenging aspect of your royal regalia. The strain on your neck muscles can cause severe pain, tension headaches, and over years of wear, permanent damage to your cervical vertebrae. Archaeological evidence from royal mummies confirms the physical toll of wearing these crowns. Many pharaohs show signs of cervical spine degeneration and arthritis far beyond what would be expected for their age. The divine burden is not merely metaphorical, but inscribed in the very bones of those who bear it. With the crown in place, secured as firmly as possible to prevent any undignified slipping or adjustment, the final elements of your transformation are added. The false beard, a metal or fiber construction attached to your chin with straps that wrap around your ears, signifies your connection to Osiris and other male deities. The straps create additional pressure points on your already strained head, the weight of the beard pulling awkwardly at your chin. Finally, you are presented with the symbols of your office, the crook and flail, that represent your roles as shepherd of your people and administrator of justice. These ceremonial objects must be held in precise positions, creating additional strain on your already ring-burdened hands and restricting your ability to gesture naturally or touch anything without deliberate planning. The transformation is now complete. The human being who awoke this morning has disappeared beneath layers of cosmetics, jewelry, and symbolic garments. In your place stands the living God, Horus on earth, ruler of the two lands. The image presented to those privileged enough to enter your presence matches exactly the standardized depictions carved on temple walls and painted on papyrus scrolls. The eternal, unchanging Pharaoh, perfect and divine. But within this perfect divine image, your human body registers a catalog of discomforts. The cosmetics itch and burn. The heavy jewelry chafes and presses. The stiff garments restrict movement and trap heat. The massive crown strains your neck muscles to their limit. The false beard pulls awkwardly at your chin. The accumulated weight of it all creates a full body awareness of your divine burden. These discomforts must never be acknowledged publicly. No grimace of pain can be permitted to cross your ceremonially painted face. No adjustment of the uncomfortable regalia can be made outside the privacy of your inner chambers. To show such human weakness would undermine the divine illusion that is the foundation of your authority. And so, you endure, learning to incorporate the pain into your conception of normal existence. The physical toll of this daily transformation accumulates over the years of your reign. The toxic metals in your cosmetics slowly poison your system. The weight of the crowns damages your spine. The restricted movement weakens muscles that go unused. The constant mild dehydration, a consequence of limited opportunities to drink water while maintaining divine dignity, taxes your kidneys and other organs. Evidence from royal mummies confirms these patterns of physical deterioration. Many pharaohs show signs of severe dental problems, likely related to the gritty bread that formed a staple of even the royal diet, but possibly exacerbated by limited opportunities for proper dental care when maintaining divine appearances was the priority. Spinal problems, particularly in the neck, are common. Arthritis appears at relatively young ages. The skin shows damage from the harsh cosmetics and depilation practices. Beyond the physical toll lies the psychological burden of this transformation. The distance between your human self and your divine presentation grows with each application of the royal cosmetics. The person you were, or might have been, in another life, becomes increasingly remote, buried beneath the weight of tradition and symbolism. Even in private moments, the memory of who you are without the royal regalia can begin to fade. This identity dissolution is not accidental, but essential to the institution of divine kingship. The individual who wears the double crown must be subsumed into the eternal office of Pharaoh. Your personal preferences, discomforts, and desires are irrelevant to your function as the living embodiment of Horus. The crushing weight of appearance serves to constantly remind you of this fundamental truth. You are not fully human anymore. As you move through your day, now fully transformed into the divine image, you become acutely aware of how your appearance affects those around you. Servants and officials prostrate themselves, pressing their foreheads to the floor in your presence. Guards stand rigidly at attention, eyes carefully averted from your divine face. Even your closest advisors maintain a careful distance, physically and emotionally, from the awesome power your appearance represents. This distance is the ultimate purpose of your transformation. The elaborate regalia and cosmetics create a barrier between you and ordinary humanity, reinforcing your unique status as the intermediary between the human and divine realms. The physical discomfort you endure is the necessary price of this separation, the constant reminder of your elevation above normal human concerns. In rare private moments, perhaps late at night, when the most essential elements of your regalia have been removed by trusted attendants, you might catch a glimpse of your natural face in a polished bronze mirror. The contrast between your human features and the divine mask you wear during the day can be startling. The person looking back from the mirror might seem like a stranger, softer, more vulnerable, more human than the God King who ruled throughout the day. These moments of recognition become increasingly rare as your reign progresses. The boundaries between your human and divine selves blur. The performance becomes reality. The mask becomes your face. The weight of appearance, crushing though it may be, becomes so familiar that its absence feels strange and disorienting. You are the living Horus now, the divine Pharaoh, and the human being you once were recedes into memory. As night falls and attendants begin the lengthy process of removing your regalia, you might feel a complex mixture of relief and loss. The physical burden lifts piece by piece: the heavy crown, the stiff collar, the restrictive garments, the elaborate cosmetics. Your body, freed from these constraints, signals its relief through softening muscles and easing pain. But with this physical relief comes a kind of identity vertigo. Who are you without the divine trappings? Where does Pharaoh end and the person begin? This question has no simple answer in the world of ancient Egypt. The office and the person are theoretically inseparable, the divine and human aspects united in a single being. Yet, the daily cycle of transformation and reversion creates an unavoidable duality, a split consciousness that is perhaps the heaviest psychological burden of your position. As servants carefully clean the cosmetics from your face, returning your skin to its natural state, they use oils and unguents to soothe the irritation caused by the harsh mineral pigments. These moments of care are perhaps the closest you come to experiencing ordinary human touch, though even here, the movements are ritualized and impersonal. The attendant's eyes carefully averted from your naked face. The jewelry is removed, piece by piece, each item treated with reverent care, cleaned, and stored in specially designed containers for tomorrow's use. As each heavy piece leaves your body, you might feel a moment of physical liberation, your natural movements gradually returning as the symbolic constraints are lifted. Your garments are carefully unwrapped and taken away to be cleaned, or, in some cases, ritually disposed of. The human body revealed beneath these layers, perhaps marked with temporary indentations where the heavy jewelry pressed against your skin, possibly showing irritation from the rough fabric or the heat trapped beneath multiple layers, is a reminder of your mortality. The human vessel that carries the divine office. Finally, your head is freed from the tight Neem's cloth and any crowns worn during the day. The release of pressure brings both relief and pain as blood flow returns to compressed tissues. Your neck muscles, strained from hours of supporting unnatural weight, may spasm and ache. Attendants might offer a massage with scented oils to ease the worst of this discomfort, their skilled hands working to undo some of the physical damage caused by your divine burden. As you prepare for sleep, now returned to a semblance of your human form, you might reflect on the profound paradox of your existence. The appearance that grants you unparalleled power and status also imprisons you in a physical cage of discomfort and restriction. The divine image that inspires awe and obedience also separates you from normal human connection and experience. The perfect, unchanging presentation that reinforces your eternal authority also denies your individual humanity. This paradox has no resolution within the system of divine kingship. It is the essential contradiction at the heart of your existence as Pharaoh. The crushing weight of appearance is not incidental to your position, but fundamental to it, the physical manifestation of the metaphysical burden of standing between humanity and the gods. And as you drift toward sleep, your body still registering the accumulated discomforts of the day, even as it begins to recover, you know with absolute certainty that tomorrow will bring the same transformation, the same burden, the same paradox. For as long as you wear the double crown, you will bear the crushing weight of divine appearance, your human body the vessel for an inhuman ideal. The night provides temporary reprieve, a brief return to physical humanity. But with the dawn will come the natron water, the razors, the white foundation, and black coal, the heavy jewelry and restrictive garments, the massive crown, all the elements of your divine transformation. The cycle continues, day after day, year after year, inscribing the burden of appearance into your very flesh. As we continue our exploration of your life as Pharaoh, we turn next to another aspect of your daily existence that bears little resemblance to common assumptions about royal privilege. Even the most basic human functions, eating and drinking, become complex ceremonial performances under the weight of your divine office. Every meal you consume is both a ritual offering and a potential threat, transforming the simple pleasure of food into yet another arena where divinity and humanity collide. Every meal, a ritual, every bite, inspected. The midday sun now stands high above the palace, sending shafts of golden light through the alabaster window screens. Your body, heavy with the weight of regalia and stiff from maintaining the proper divine posture, begins to register the natural human sensation of hunger. For ordinary Egyptians, this feeling would prompt a simple response, the consumption of food. But for you, as Pharaoh, even this most basic biological need must be addressed through elaborate ritual and ceremony. The time for your midday meal approaches, but you cannot simply request food when hunger strikes. The schedule of royal meals is determined by astronomical observations and religious calendars, coordinated with temple offerings and divine feeding ceremonies throughout the kingdom. Your hunger, like every other aspect of your humanity, must conform to the requirements of cosmic order, ma'at, rather than direct your behavior. Priests consult their charts and scrolls, determining the exact moment when it is appropriate for the living Horus to receive nourishment. Only when the sun reaches a specific position in the sky, carefully measured by shadow lengths, will the complex machinery of the royal meal begin to move. Your stomach may growl impatiently, but such mortal discomforts are beneath the notice of divine kingship. When the appointed time arrives, you are led in solemn procession to the dining chamber. This is not the casual movement of a hungry person toward food, but a ceremonial journey with religious significance. Guards precede you, ensuring the path is clear and secure. Priests walk alongside, reciting the appropriate hymns and spells. Attendants follow, carrying the necessary implements for the elaborate ritual that a royal meal entails. The dining chamber itself reflects the sacred nature of royal eating. Unlike the simple eating areas of ordinary homes, or even the more elaborate banquet halls where nobles might entertain, your dining space is designed with both ceremonial function and security in mind. The walls are adorned with images of offering scenes, painted depictions of gods receiving the bounty of Egypt or of you as Pharaoh, presenting offerings to various deities. The centerpiece of the room is your dining chair, not quite a throne, but still imposing and formal, decorated with symbols of royal power and divine protection. Unlike ordinary Egyptians, who might eat sitting on mats or simple stools, or even nobles who use more comfortable chairs, your dining seat maintains the formal posture required of Pharaoh, even during meals. Comfort is secondary to proper ceremonial positioning. You take your place, arranged by attendants, to ensure the correct alignment of your body and regalia. Even seated for a meal, you must maintain the divine posture, back straight, head balanced carefully under the weight of your headdress, arms positioned to accommodate the restrictive jewelry while still allowing the practical movements necessary for eating. Before any food can be presented to you, the space must be purified. Priests move around the chamber, censers swinging from chains, filling the air with the thick smoke of kaifi incense. The heavy, sweet aroma of frankincense, myrrh, and other precious resins cleanses the atmosphere, but also adds another layer of sensory intensity to what should be the simple act of satisfying hunger. The smoke sometimes makes your eyes water and can interfere with the sense of taste, but such practical concerns are irrelevant to the requirements of ritual purity. With the space prepared, attention turns to the food itself, but the dishes that will eventually reach your divine lips must first undergo a series of inspections and ceremonial preparations that transform them from mere sustenance to offerings worthy of a god. The preparation of royal food begins long before mealtime, in kitchens separated from the main palace complex, a security measure designed to limit access to what will become your meal. The royal kitchens are staffed by specially selected and extensively vetted personnel, many from families that have served the royal house for generations. These food preparers undergo purification rituals before beginning their work and wear specific garments that mark their sacred function. The ingredients themselves receive special treatment from the moment they enter the palace complex. Grains, fruits, vegetables, meats, and other foodstuffs intended for the royal table are harvested or slaughtered with special ceremonies, inspected multiple times, and kept under constant guard during preparation. The best products from throughout Egypt are reserved for your table. The first fruits of each harvest, the finest cuts from sacrificial animals, the purest honey from royal apiaries. Once prepared according to traditional recipes, many unchanged for centuries, and recorded in sacred texts rather than passed down through ordinary culinary training. The dishes begin their journey to your dining chamber. Each item is first presented at a small altar within the kitchen complex, where priests make symbolic offerings to the gods, acknowledging that all nourishment ultimately comes from divine sources. From the kitchen to your dining chamber, the food travels under heavy guard, carried by trusted servants who have undergone extensive security screening and ritual purification. The procession moves with ceremonial slowness, the dishes covered with protective cloths, both for practical cleanliness and symbolic shielding from malevolent influences. As the food finally enters your presence, the most critical security measure begins. The royal food tasters, individuals selected for their loyalty and rewarded handsomely for their dangerous service, step forward to perform their vital function. These are not low-status servants, but often members of noble families whose loyalty has been proven over generations. Their position, while perilous, carries significant status and compensation, for they literally risk their lives with every meal you consume. You watch as each dish is uncovered before you, its appearance inspected first by officials responsible for ensuring that the presentation meets the standards required for divine consumption. Only foods prepared in specific ways, arranged in particular patterns, and containing symbolically appropriate ingredients can be presented to Pharaoh. A dish that might be delicious but lacks the proper ceremonial attributes would never reach your table. Once the visual inspection is complete, the food taster approaches, taking a portion from each dish, not a token amount, but a substantial serving. The taster consumes the food in your presence. You observe carefully, as do physicians and security officials standing nearby, watching for any sign of distress or poisoning. The taster must eat enough of each item to ensure that any poison present would manifest symptoms, but not so much that insufficient portions remain for your divine meal. After consuming portions of each dish, the taster must wait. This period of observation might last from 15 minutes to half an hour, depending on the specific security protocols of your reign and any current threats to your safety. During this time, you continue to sit in formal posture, hunger perhaps growing more insistent as all present watch the taster for any signs of discomfort, illness, or worse. The practical reality behind this ceremony is stark. Assassination by poisoning has been attempted against pharaohs throughout Egyptian history. The elaborate food security measures are not merely ceremonial, but reflect real threats to your physical safety. The luxurious trappings of your position make you a target, and every person with access to your food represents a potential vector for those who might wish you harm. Only after the taster shows no ill effects and physicians give their approval can your actual meal begin. But even now, with food proven safe and ceremonially appropriate, you cannot simply eat as hunger dictates. The consumption of food by the living embodiment of Horus remains a ritual act governed by specific protocols and religious significance. Servants approach to wash your hands in scented water poured from ceremonial ewers. The washing implements, basin, pitcher, towels, are themselves sacred objects, decorated with protective symbols and used exclusively for royal hand washing. The water may contain essence of lotus or other purifying elements, and specific prayers are recited as your hands are cleansed. With your hands purified, servants present the first course of the meal. Unlike ordinary Egyptians who might eat with their fingers from shared dishes, your food is served on individual plates of precious materials: gold, silver, alabaster, or fine ceramic, depending on the specific requirements of the day's ceremonial schedule. The symbolic significance of the serving vessels is as important as the food they contain. The presentation of each dish follows a prescribed order determined by religious tradition. Certain foods must be eaten first, others reserved for specific moments in the meal. The sequence is not designed for culinary pleasure or digestive health, but to mirror cosmic patterns and divine preferences. Your personal taste is largely irrelevant to this ordering. The living Horus eats according to divine protocols, not human cravings. As you prepare to take your first bite, you become aware of the intense scrutiny focused on this seemingly mundane act. Priests observe to ensure proper ritual compliance. Scribes stand ready to record what and how much the living God consumes. Information considered important for temple records and historical documentation. Physicians watch for any sign that particular foods might disagree with your divine constitution, ready to adjust future meals accordingly. The pressure of this observation transforms the simple pleasure of eating into another performance of your divine role. Even the way you bring food to your mouth must reflect appropriate dignity and ceremonial correctness. Movements that would be natural for an ordinary person eating, the casual reach for a favorite item, the enthusiastic consumption of a particularly delicious bite, must be suppressed in favor of measured, ritualized gestures. The food itself, while representing the finest available in the kingdom, presents its own challenges. The Egyptian diet, even for royalty, is based primarily on bread and beer, supplemented with vegetables, fruits, and varying amounts of meat depending on the occasion. The bread, made from emmer wheat or barley, often contains small particles of sand from the grinding stones used in its preparation. Over a lifetime, this abrasive material wears down the enamel of your teeth, causing dental pain that intensifies with age, a common finding in royal mummies. Beer, the primary beverage, is thicker and less alcoholic than modern equivalents, providing significant nutrition as well as hydration. But it too contains particles of grain and fermentation byproducts that can affect dental health. Wine is available for ceremonial occasions, but even this luxury drink lacks modern filtration, containing sediments and sometimes additives that can cause digestive discomfort. The finest cuts of meat, beef, goose, duck, various game animals, appear on your table, but cooking methods in ancient Egypt are limited. Without precise temperature control, meats may be unevenly cooked, sometimes tough or difficult to chew, especially when your dental health has been compromised by years of abrasive bread consumption. The most tender portions are selected for you, but the physical act of chewing can still be uncomfortable. Fruits and vegetables provide welcome freshness and nutritional balance, but these too come with ceremonial requirements. Certain plants are associated with specific deities and must be consumed with appropriate reverence. Others are believed to have particular effects on the divine body and are included in your diet for medicinal or magical purposes rather than taste or nutrition. As you eat, maintaining the careful balance between satisfying physical hunger and performing the ritual requirements of divine dining. Servants stand ready to assist with every aspect of the meal. You need not serve yourself or reach for items. Such mundane actions would be beneath your divine dignity. Instead, each dish is presented at precisely the right moment, each serving portioned according to ceremonial requirements. The practical consequence of this elaborate service is that you rarely experience the simple satisfaction of eating according to your own rhythm and preference. The meal progresses according to ritual timing rather than your appetite. Dishes are removed when ceremonial protocols dictate, not when you have finished enjoying them. The natural pleasure of eating, one of the most fundamental human experiences, becomes yet another aspect of your existence subject to the demands of divine kingship. Throughout the meal, you may not speak casually as ordinary people might during their meals. Conversation, if any occurs, follows formal patterns and focuses on matters of state or religious significance. The light-hearted banter or family discussions that characterize meals in ordinary households would be inappropriate for the divine dining chamber. Your meals are occasions of state, not opportunities for social connection or relaxation. The public nature of your dining adds another layer of pressure to what should be a private physical function. While the most intimate royal meals might include only a dozen or so essential personnel, food tasters, servers, security, priests, and record keepers, larger ceremonial banquets could involve hundreds of observers. On these occasions, your every bite becomes a public performance, witnessed by officials, nobles, and sometimes foreign dignitaries. These larger banquets serve important political and social functions, reinforcing the hierarchy of Egyptian society through seating arrangements and food distribution. Those closest to you receive food most similar to your own, with quality and quantity diminishing with distance from the royal presence. Your visible consumption of particular dishes confers status on certain foods and, by extension, on those permitted to eat them. But these public dining occasions multiply the pressure and scrutiny you experience. The weight of your regalia, already uncomfortable during private meals, becomes even more burdensome when you must maintain perfect divine composure before a large audience for extended periods. The heat generated by numerous bodies in the banquet hall, combined with the warming effect of food and drink, can make your heavy ceremonial garb almost unbearable. The length of ceremonial meals adds to their physical challenge. While your private daily meals might be completed relatively quickly once the security and ritual requirements are satisfied, formal banquets can continue for hours. Throughout this time, you must maintain proper posture and dignified behavior, even as fatigue and discomfort increase. The simple physical relief of stretching tired muscles or adjusting uncomfortable regalia must be deferred until you can retreat from public view. Even the end of a meal follows specific ceremonial patterns. You cannot simply indicate that you have finished eating as an ordinary person might. Instead, priests and officials Watch for subtle cues or follow predetermined schedules to determine when the royal meal should conclude. Hand-washing rituals, similar to those that preceded the meal, mark its formal completion with the same ceremonial implements and purifying substances. As the remains of your meal are cleared away, you might notice the careful handling of anything that has touched your lips or been in proximity to your divine person. Leftover food is not treated as ordinary waste, but disposed of according to specific protocols. Some items might be ritually burned or buried within sacred precincts. Others might be distributed to particular officials as a mark of special favor, the blessing of having consumed food prepared for divine consumption, conferring both status and magical protection. Even your dining implements receive special treatment. Plates, cups, and utensils used by Pharaoh are purified through specific rituals before being stored in secure locations until the next royal meal. Some items, particularly those used during the most sacred festivals, might be used only once and then placed in temple treasuries as offerings, the divine touch transforming them from functional objects to sacred artifacts. With the meal complete and the dining chamber cleared, you might experience a brief moment of physical satisfaction, the basic human need for nourishment temporarily addressed. But even this simple bodily contentment is complicated by the ceremonial nature of your eating. Did you consume what you truly wanted, or what tradition dictated? Was your hunger satisfied according to your body's needs, or according to the prescribed portions appropriate for divine consumption? These questions highlight the fundamental alienation from normal human experience that characterizes your existence as Pharaoh. Even the most basic physical functions, eating when hungry, drinking when thirsty, are removed from your direct control and transformed into performances of divine kingship. Your body, though subject to the same biological needs as any other human, must subordinate those needs to the requirements of your sacred office. The pattern established at your midday meal will repeat at the evening meal, and again tomorrow, and the day after. Throughout your reign, each meal reinforces your separation from ordinary humanity. Each ceremonial bite widens the gap between your physical reality and your divine role. The simple pleasure of eating, enjoyed without thought or ceremony by even the humblest of your subjects, becomes for you another arena where humanity and divinity uncomfortably coexist. As night approaches and preparations begin for your evening meal, you might reflect on the paradox at the heart of your divine dining. You consume the finest foods available in your kingdom, served with unparalleled ceremony and attention. Yet this apparent privilege conceals a profound deprivation, the loss of one of life's most fundamental pleasures, the simple, unmediated satisfaction of hunger according to personal preference and natural appetite. This paradox extends to nearly every aspect of your existence as Pharaoh. The trappings of absolute power and divine status come with the hidden cost of alienation from normal human experience. The golden prison of your palace constrains your movements. The crushing weight of royal regalia restricts your physical comfort. And now, even the basic act of eating reveals itself as yet another aspect of your humanity sacrificed to the demands of divine kingship. And as servants appear to guide you toward your evening meal, the cycle begins again. The hand washing, the food tasting, the ceremonial consumption under watchful eyes. Another meal that will satisfy your physical hunger while reinforcing your spiritual isolation. Another reminder that even the most basic human needs cannot be experienced normally by one who walks as a god among mortals. The elaborate rituals surrounding your food serve practical purposes, protecting you from poisoning, reinforcing your divine status, maintaining cosmic order through proper observance of tradition. But they also create a barrier between you and one of life's simple pleasures, transforming what should be a moment of physical satisfaction and perhaps social connection into yet another performance of your divine role. As we continue our exploration of your life as Pharaoh, we will next examine perhaps the most vulnerable state in any human's existence, sleep. For even in unconsciousness, the living embodiment of Horus cannot escape the weight of divine expectation and the constant scrutiny that defines the pharaonic experience. The remaining burdens of divine kingship. As night falls over the royal palace, you might imagine that sleep would offer some respite from the crushing weight of divine kingship. Yet even in this most vulnerable state, you find no true privacy or peace. Servants monitor your every breath. Priests stand ready to record any words you might utter in dreams, believing them to be divine messages. Your sleeping chamber, though luxurious, functions more as a sacred space than a personal refuge. Protective amulets surround your bed, spells are inscribed on the walls, and guards maintain constant vigilance. Even your unconscious mind belongs not to you, but to the state and the gods. Your family life offers little comfort to balance these burdens. Royal marriages are political arrangements, often involving your own sisters or half-sisters to maintain divine bloodlines. These incestuous unions, modeled after the divine marriage of Isis and Osiris, lead to genetic complications that plague the royal family. Miscarriages, infant mortality, and congenital defects that become more pronounced with each generation. Your children are raised not primarily as beloved offspring, but as political assets, educated from birth in their ceremonial roles, and kept at a formal distance from your divine person. Family rivalries fester within the palace walls, with wives competing for influence and sons positioning themselves as potential heirs. The warmth of genuine family bonds enjoyed by even the humblest of your subjects remains largely foreign to your experience. Health concerns add another layer of suffering to your divine existence. Despite access to the most skilled physicians in the kingdom, medical knowledge in ancient Egypt remains primitive by any modern standard. Treatments often cause more harm than healing. Eye infections from toxic cosmetics, dental abscesses from worn enamel, intestinal parasites from contaminated food and water. Remedies involve mixtures of practical herbal medicine and magical incantations, sometimes requiring the consumption of substances that would turn a modern stomach. Lizard blood, hippopotamus excrement, or rotting meat believed to have special properties. The physical toll of your ceremonial duties, the heavy crowns damaging your cervical spine, the restricted movement weakening your muscles, the constant stress undermining your immune system, accelerates the natural deterioration of your body. Yet you must never display weakness or illness publicly, for the divine body is supposed to remain perfect and powerful even as the human vessel suffers. Administrative burdens consume whatever energy remains after your ceremonial obligations. As the ultimate authority in Egypt, all significant decisions require your approval, from tax collection to irrigation projects, from military campaigns to diplomatic negotiations. The machinery of government functions through your divine word. Daily audiences with officials bring an endless stream of reports, petitions, and problems requiring resolution. The information presented to you passes through multiple filters of bureaucracy, often distorted to serve various interests, leaving you to make momentous decisions based on incomplete or misleading data. The consequences of error are enormous: crop failures, if agricultural timing is misjudged, military defeats, if threats are misunderstood, social unrest, if taxes prove too burdensome. The weight of an entire civilization rests on your judgment, informed by advisors whose loyalty cannot always be trusted and limited by your isolation from the realities of ordinary life. Religious duties dominate your calendar. As the high priest of every cult in Egypt, you bear responsibility for maintaining proper relations with the divine realm. Temple dedications, offering ceremonies, festival processions, these consume countless hours, each requiring specific regalia, precise movements, and flawless recitation of ancient texts. The physical demands of these rituals, standing for hours in the desert heat, carrying heavy ceremonial objects, performing complex sequences of movements while wearing restrictive garments, leave you exhausted, yet unable to show fatigue. The psychological pressure is equally intense, for any error in ritual performance might anger the gods and threaten the cosmic order that your position exists to maintain. The fate of the entire kingdom, the flooding of the Nile, the success of crops, protection from disease and invasion, depends on your perfect execution of religious obligations established centuries before your birth. Threats to your safety create a constant background of fear and suspicion. Despite elaborate security measures, assassination attempts occur throughout Egyptian history. Palace conspiracies, often originating in the royal harem or among ambitious officials, represent an ever-present danger. Foreign powers seek to influence or undermine your rule through spies, bribes, or military pressure. Supernatural threats, curses, evil spirits, magical attacks require constant vigilance from protective priests. You can never truly relax, never fully trust those around you, never move without guards and magical protections. The paradox of absolute power coupled with absolute vulnerability creates a psychological burden that few modern people could comprehend. To be simultaneously the most exalted and the most threatened person in the kingdom. From the earliest days of your reign, preparations for your death and afterlife consume enormous resources and attention. Your tomb construction begins immediately after your coronation, requiring decades of labor and vast expenditures. The collection of burial goods, everything from massive sarcophagi to tiny amulets, proceeds throughout your life, with artisans creating thousands of objects specifically for your eternal use. The mummification process that will preserve your body after death influences your living actions, with dietary restrictions and purification rituals designed to prepare your physical form for its eventual transformation. Priests instruct you in the spells and passwords you will need to navigate the dangerous journey through the underworld. The Book of the Dead and other funerary texts must be memorized, their complex mythology integrated into your understanding of what awaits beyond mortal existence. This constant focus on death and afterlife casts a shadow over your living days, a persistent reminder of your strange dual nature as both temporary human vessel and eternal divine presence. The final burden of pharaonic existence transcends your lifetime. The question of how history will judge your reign, unlike ordinary humans, whose mistakes and failures might be forgotten within a generation, your actions will be recorded in stone, your face carved into monuments meant to last for eternity. Yet this apparent immortality carries its own vulnerability, for successive pharaohs often erase or usurp the works of their predecessors, rewriting history to enhance their own divine legitimacy. The magnificent tomb you spend a lifetime creating may be robbed within generations, your carefully preserved body desecrated, your name chiseled from monuments in acts of damnatio memoriae. The legacy you hope to leave for eternity remains hostage to political forces you cannot control from beyond the grave. And so we complete our journey through the horrifying reality behind the golden mask of pharaonic power, from the crushing weight of divine responsibility to the elaborate prison of the palace, from the physical burdens of royal appearance to the transformation of even basic human functions into ceremonial performances, from the isolation of family life to the constant threats against your safety, from the primitive medical treatments to the obsessive focus on death and afterlife. Every aspect of your existence, as Pharaoh reveals the profound cost of divine kingship, the splendor that dazzles modern imaginations, the gold, the monuments, the absolute authority, conceals a life of extraordinary constraint and suffering. The Pharaoh, seemingly the most privileged person in ancient Egypt, experiences a form of existence that few would willingly choose if they understood its true nature. The price of godhood is the sacrifice of humanity, a bargain whose full cost becomes apparent only when we look beyond the gleaming surface to the burdened human being beneath the double crown. As you drift into sleep, perhaps in your dreams, you might experience what your waking life denies: the simple freedom of ordinary humanity, unburdened by divine expectations and ceremonial demands. But even this small comfort remains elusive, for in the world of ancient Egypt, even the dreams of Pharaoh belong not to the individual, but to the eternal office of divine kingship.